So thank you again, Tom,
Okay.
for your introduction. My name is Patrick Yawackie. Which is home to the Salish, Kootenai, and Pend Oreille Confederated Tribes. I live here with my children. They're CSKT members, and with my wife, Regina MadPlume, who is a CSKT tribal member and also co-founder of People's Food Sovereignty Program. I am the co-founder and food sovereignty director of People's Food Sovereignty Program. We've been in existence since the winter on the onset of COVID-19 in 2020. We were created through the education that my wife, Regina, and I received at Salish Kootenai College, myself in tribal administration and governance, which is essentially like a tribal political science degree, and my wife in tribal historic preservation, which is a cultural resource management degree, whose goals are to repatriate or preserve or conserve tribal resources. And those could be anything from tangible objects such as ceremonial or all the way to natural resources such as the land and water and trees and such. And so our education brought us together to create a plan, which I'll go into a little bit further, but utilizing that education and understanding of who we are, our identity as Native people today, and utilizing that understanding and also the great diversity that the Flathead Reservation offers. Salish Kootenai College is an educational hub for the Native community throughout the country, and over 67 different tribes are represented every year at Salish Kootenai College. And so the local community is very diverse in terms of tribal communities that are represented, and being able to utilize the input from tribes throughout the country, as well as understanding our education in terms of our historical timelines as Native people, and from everything from pre-colonialization to where we are right now, and understanding policy changes and things like that on national and state levels. We try to utilize all those understandings to implement these projects and programs, which I'll go on through People's Food Sovereignty Program. And so right now, I will start a presentation. And so People's Food Sovereignty Program was created in an offset of a mutual aid effort that happened at the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic. People's Food Sovereignty Program was offered as a way so that tribal members who were interested or requesting cultural resources, especially food and medicine, such as deer and elk meat or bison meat, or medicines such as sweetgrass or sage or huckleberries, or anything that was traditionally available to tribes, and definitely the Salish and Kootenai and Pend Oreille people, that we would procure those items and then be able to distribute them to those interested participants. In the beginning of my advocacy here on the Flathead Reservation in terms of food sovereignty, I was really able to use my education in real time, being able to work in either these food sovereignty objectives, or else I've been a local grassroots organizer focusing on Native civic engagement. And so that's everything from get out the vote services all the way to lobbying for the issues that are important to the Flathead Reservation. And so in the beginning, these food sovereignty efforts were created through community meetings that we had. We had several different community meetings throughout the reservation, and really until really everybody was sick and tired of them, of different community members giving their input on what a indigenous food system would look like for the Flathead Reservation. And this includes 3 different counties: Sanders, Missoula, and Lake County. Really gathering the input from every single community on the reservation and what they would like to see in a food system. And so these early meetings were done by my colleague and I, Michael Billington, who's sitting next to me in the black shirt, and then members of different governmental agencies, or business owners, or just people who are interested in this work, organizations as well. And so we had like USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service there, tribal council members, tribal department heads, the college, Salish Kootenai College represented, and other business owners such as grocery store owners and other nonprofit organizations. And so from there, we took our input and we put it into a document. And this was done in 2016, at the end of 2016, where we took all that input and created like an ultimate, like a guiding document in terms of what an indigenous food system would look like. And this was something that really emphasized on understanding kind of the assimilations and colonization that has happened to this region, how the influx of non-tribal people in the area have put a dent or a desecration on some of the natural resources here, and those ecosystems that provided different foods and medicines are not as existent today as they were available in the past. And so what we would what we'd like to see is moving towards more indigenous ways of agriculture, understanding the balance of ecosystems, and then those preservation and conservation of different cultural resources that are very important to the tribal people here. This document was then presented in 2016 to CSKT Tribal Council. The advocacy for food sovereignty and the understanding it, from an agricultural point of view, is something that, a lot of people view as, what we need to do now, or the most immediate, response to kind of the needs and effects of the current system that we live in. Definitely being able to have localized foods and businesses to build economies and things like that. It's understood in the agricultural community, or the localized agricultural community, that this is something that's vitally important. But in the bigger picture and understanding kind of the assimilation of tribes, there's still a lot of education and understanding that needs to get done, recognition of the realities of food insecurity, and being able to preserve culture through health. And so in our earliest onset of our advocacy, we've ran into some hurdles that we're still working on today, but we are trying to do our best in educating those who just don't see what the opportunities with food sovereignty present. So next, through my education, was able to formalize these ideas and understandings of what is needed for an effort to indigenize a food system for the Flathead Reservation. My colleague and I, Michael Billington, and I created CSKT Farms, which incorporates different aspects to a food system, from protein to produce to distribution, and how in a steady increase in steps of doing it in a sustainable way that we know that we can be self-sustaining, not just for the tribal community here, but offer a future of self-sustainability for the non-tribal community within the reservation, as well as the local region from at least Missoula all the way up to Kalispell. And so our mission is to create a tribal-owned farm program that produces food to provide for tribal members on the reservation, restore traditional knowledge that supports indigenous, sustainable, sovereign agriculture education to Head Start, K through 12, and college educational curriculum. And this was presented to CSKT Tribal Council, as well as we had a campaign to receive letters of support from all the tribal departments, and was presented to Tribal Council on in 2017 as well as 2019. The support from Tribal Council is verbal. We have that verbal support from them. It's just working through kind of the avenues of the departments and trying to work with them to find solutions to the problems we're facing. And although it was not fully implemented, we still try to assist the tribal community in reaching the goals of food sovereignty. People's Food Sovereignty Program was first initiated through a donation of turkeys and hams, initially turkeys in the Thanksgiving time of 2020. And then during Christmas, we were able to receive another donation of turkeys. This time we received 60 turkeys and then 30 hams, and then some candy for Christmas to be able to distribute to tribal homes. And this was just a great way to get our name out there, let people know that, we are looking out for them. And then what we really try to do is meet people where they're at. And this is a lot of education that I received in our civic engagement with our Get Out the Vote activities, that a lot of people just face a lot of non-access to resources because of different things like lack of transportation or funds to provide for fuel, or other things like children, the need to watch over their children or work or things like that, that there's a lot of limitations to tribal communities to be able to receive resources. And so what we try to do is meet them where they're at and deliver to our participants. Following our turkey and ham distribution, we were able to receive a donation through a partnership from the National Bison Range before it was transferred over to CSKT. We received 8 donated elk this year, and the culling elk program was administered by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, but now has moved under CSKT, and they manage all the new programs under the Bison Range. What we did was we received the culled elk, and distributed them to the local processor, where it was processed into roast, steaks, and ground burger. And we distributed that to interested participants. And we had a rather large list. Our first year, we distributed to 77 tribal homes and 267 individuals that first year. In that first year, we gave out about 1.5 pounds to each participant or each individual in each home. And this program, really focuses on the conservation of local herds, and by identifying any chronic wasting disease that we would be able to identify it through this program. And so we get the elk and deer tested, and then whenever it's safe, we distribute that meat to local participants. And in our first year, again, 77 tribal homes, 267 individuals. In our second year, this last winter, we distributed over 800 tribal individuals in 180 tribal homes, doubling our capacity. And for this year, we are set on doubling our capacity again by providing up to 5,000 pounds of wild game to our participants. In our second year, we distributed 2,100 pounds, so a little over a ton of wild game to tribal participants. This year, this summer, we expanded our meat distribution program by creating processes, food safe processing for traditional ways of distribution of our meat. Traditionally, tribal people process their foods into dry meat, or their meat into dry meat or dehydrated means. And so what we did was we created a process for a more traditional way of drying out meat over a pit fire, and then a more contemporary way. We've created a industrial distribution of dry meat through an industrial dehydrator. In this way, again, in following kind of the opportunities to conserve our natural environment, this way of distribution will greatly diminish our carbon footprint in the program. The next program that we initiated was a gardening bed network. We just finished our second year. This was initiated through a partnership through Seedlings for Solidarity and 1,000 New Gardens out of Missoula. What they did was they offered some resources of the former Losmason Center's organic garden on the university campus. There was a demolition of that garden, and we received all the refurbished wood and organic dirt, totaling a little bit over $18,000 worth of refurbished materials. And Seedlings for Solidarity helped organize that donation, as well as provided us tools and plant starts or seedlings for participants in our program. And in our first year, this is an article from the Charcusta featuring my wife and I in the program. And in our first year, we were able to distribute up to 51 tribal homes on the reservation. And in our first year, we worked with a lot of different Missoula community members who assisted in the project. On the left-hand side is some tribal members who work in our program. They're called Food Sovereignty Warriors. Lex Pierre on the left and Art Mad on the right are crucial to our program and the backbone to ensuring that these garden beds are installed or distributed and installed at each location. And so, without them, there wouldn't be a People's Food Sovereignty Program. In the middle is the community breaking down the Losmason Center's organic garden. And on the right is some participants in the program who on the top, and then Seedlings for Solidarity helping with the cutting of the boards and then display of the seedlings that they provided in the program. In our program, we're able to distribute each home a garden frame, dirt, compost, organic fertilizer, tools, and then again seedlings, a variety of different seedlings per participant, and this is at no cost, and so totally free to our participants. What we and this is an overarching belief of all of our programs, is just recognize whenever people return to their traditional ways, or the way they work with stewardship with their land and then their local wildlife, that there is a connection, and there's a lot of healing that can be done to the historical traumas of our communities. And the garden program is a huge way that we are trying to heal our communities, by getting them back into the dirt, their hands back into the dirt, and getting their hands dirty. And we believe, with this opportunity for a new lifestyle, that many people can rise out of issues, mental health issues, or physical health issues. And so this is our distribution, and my wife and I installing a bed in Evero. Something also, again, that we try to emphasize is our conservation, and then being able to reuse different materials. There's a local business out of Missoula called Heritage Timbers, who has been providing us with excess refurbished wood that they receive in their program, and so we're able to utilize this wood and then utilize it for our gardens. Next, we just wanted to highlight our internship program. This year, we worked with Montana State University, who provided us 2 interns. On the left, Maddie Griswold, and on the right, Juan Lopez. And they've been able to provide us an opportunity to expand our gardening program. Maddie helped us with a website, as well as recipes and educational gardening videos that we provided to our participants this summer to assist them in the process. And then Juan helped us out with expanding our dry meat program, and understanding how to use our dehydrator, and then creating safe processes for our distribution of dry meat. And then to expand into another program that we've implemented is lobbying at the state capitol for important issues that pertain to tribal communities throughout the state. Some bills that we testified on had to do a lot with protecting bison as a cultural resource, and then also the efforts of restoration of bison throughout the state, and kind of protecting the relationships between tribal and non-tribal entities in the efforts of restoration of bison. And there's a lot of lack of education at our in our state legislature, and kind of the policies, the federal Indian policies, and also the kind of the protections that lie in the state constitution, as well as other codes of the government, that tribal communities have protections that they participate in these types of legislation that are important to their communities. And agriculture is something that is huge in Indian country, and so being able to advocate on those needs of our tribal community is something that hasn't really been done in the past, but is something that we keep on our radar. Definitely policy and setting the rules are something that we would like to be part of, and then including those tribal voices in these legislations. From holding our governmental officials accountable, we also participate in other community engagements and get out the vote opportunities. On the left, we were able to give out school supplies this past week at a local music event. It was a hip hop event, hip hop culture, and we were able to provide K through 12 students some school supplies. And on the right hand side, we are at the Arlie celebration during the 4th of July time period. And we were signing people up for programs for meat distributions and gardening bed networks, and then as well as providing some seeds and then an opportunity to register to vote if they need it. This is a list of our partners and some of the good collaborations that we've had so far. You know, we show our greatest appreciation to the support that we've received, you know, as a grassroots organization from our local community members who are putting, you know, their sweat and tears into ensuring that, you know, our resources get delivered or whatever's, or, you know, our financial support that we've received. And being able to call these organizations partners is something that we hold very valuable to our organization. That will conclude my presentation. And so I hope everyone enjoyed, and I will be open for questions.
Enormous thanks to you, Patrick, both for the work that you and others are doing and for sharing this with us. I just find it incredibly exciting, and it just feels, I was going to say visionary, and I realized that that really is the wrong word, because you're reaching back into traditional ways and bringing them into the present. And that's a gift, I know, on the lands where you are, but it's a gift for all of us too. So thank you so much. We're going to be taking questions now. So if you could type your question into the chat. I think we have one already. Let's start with Gusty.
What was the most surprising learning throughout this experience work? I would say, I mean, we're always, in terms of the tribal community, and this may not be known by, you know, outsiders, but, you know, when working with, you know, our tribal governments or programs, you know, you really have to take in consideration, you know, where people are at in terms of, you know, their identity and, you know, how they were raised, or, you know, the world that they live in and they perceive life. And so really trying to work in ways that meet people in the middle is something that, you know, I had to learn. You know, we always think that, because in terms of tribal community, we always think that we can relate to each other because we look like each other, or because we're Native American, that we see the same way, but that's not usually the case. So it's something that I'm learning every day how to be better at, and trying to find people where they're at as well in the work that we do.
Thank you. I realized I skipped something here, something really important. In order to raise your hand, if you would click on the reactions button, and then you'll have an electronic way to raise your hand, and I'll be calling on people in order. If this is a struggle for you, let us know in the chat. Okay. So while we're waiting for that to work, what do you feel, Patrick, has been the biggest success or takeaway of the food sovereignty work so far?
I would say our most tangible things are the participants list that we have, and then you know, the actual food that we've distributed or the gardens that we've installed. Those are, you know, footprints, and what we always try to do is just inspire people. And you know, into the future, you know, we're seeing, like, into the future, we know that we see youth participants in our programs who are, you know, starting at like 5 years old, managing their own gardens. So um, you know, give it some years down the road, you know, that little 6x4 garden will probably be, you know, hopefully a field, or you know, a good portion of their yard made into a garden, or, you know, something bigger than that 6x4. And that's what we're striving for, is just building on, you know, building on the foundation that we've created, and then being able to expand those capacities, reach more people, inspire more people.
Mhm. That's really, really beautiful. Let's see, you can also click on the question and answer button along the bottom. What would you wish that non-native people knew or understood about food sovereignty?
Something that I, you know, have been seeing, because I grew up in a non-tribal community, and then I also was able to work in that mutual aid opportunity during the onset of COVID, is that, you know, there's a real opportunity for non-tribal communities, whether it be, you know, large municipal cities, or, you know, your local community, to be able to utilize policy and change policy, to be more representative of the needs, whether it be food insecurity, or, you know, like kind of cultural needs, or what type of food that your local community wants to see in their community, and trying to open more opportunities for, you know, local entrepreneurs, or you know, organizations, to be able to provide for some of those people who may need it the most. And I try to let people know that food sovereignty is not just an indigenous concept, but it's a concept that every community can use, um, you know, to set that foundation of who they are as a community and what they want.
Susan Debris has a question.
Are the gardens in people's yards or community sites? The gardens are in people's yards. We deliver it to each tribal household. And so they really have the ability to tell us where they want it, make it as easy as possible, again, so that they can just get their hands in the dirt and start, you know, this new lifestyle.
While we're waiting for more questions, here's another one. What are ways that non-tribal people could be supportive during the legislative season?
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of important conservation efforts, definitely for bison restoration. You know, these nonprofit efforts to conserve large ecosystems in the state. The Charles M. Russell is one, the wildlife refuge there. These are important activities being done to preserve bison, that the wild bison, you know, and wild bison is in Montana Constitution. And so this is a natural resource that both tribal and non-tribal people share in Montana, and, you know, striving to protect, you know, our Constitution is something that, you know, I believe all Montanans, you know, should be fighting for, you know, regardless of what side you're on. But you know, those are like some of the, you know, baseline activities being done right now to preserve our sovereignty, and then also to you know, kind of preserve our access to these foods, as well as you know, just the lack of education You may live in an area that, you know, the state official doesn't represent your politics, but, you know, trying to educate them in ways, you know, as a local constituent, that you provide them education, you know, bombard them with education on the identities and histories of Native people, so that, you know, they can't say that they haven't received that information or education.
Here's another one. Do tribal people have special access to deer and elk
Yep.
on tribal lands?
Yeah, that's another issue that was raised at the Capitol. There was a local official that put out a bill that tried to open up non-tribal hunting of elk on a community in the Jocko, or in the it was in the Jocko Valley. I forgot what area it was, but this non-tribal person was trying to open up a business where he allowed people to come and hunt on their lands. And you know, this is an issue that the tribe felt strong about, and then not just this tribe but other tribes, you know, that it's in our treaty rights that protect the resources within the reservation borders, and that includes elk and deer. And so, yeah, there's only access to hunt wild game by enrolled tribal members, CSKT tribal members within the reservation. And there are other programs such as at the wildlife reserves, like Nine Pipes here on the reservation, that offer hunting of fowl within those areas. And so that's open to non-tribal, but wild game, large wild game, is off limits to non-tribal.
Okay. Carol Mick has a question. I'm not sure if, for some reason, I'm not able to see the chat right now. Can you see her question, Patrick?
Yep.
Okay.
It says, how is the CSKT taking over the bison range and what kind of management? And so originally, it's still under the, I guess, the ultimate management of the Department of Interior. But it switched from a collaboration with, you know, the National Fish and Wildlife, and then Department of Interior management over the bison range. And then recently that switched over to CSKT over a long-standing legal battle to obtain the National Bison Range. And so they do everything from an ecological conservation to the management of all the wildlife, including the bison herd on the bison range. And yeah, everything, mostly it's just native restoration of the entire bison range.
Patrick, how is it working for you with this incredible program, networking with other reservations?
Well, that's, you know, it's I mean, again, in my presentation, food sovereignty has been around for quite a bit. The UN made definitions through some non-governmental organizations' efforts to try to define what food sovereignty is, and so it's been around for quite some time. It's just, you know, what I feel is that indigenous tribes of United States, because of our you know, the federal policies that, you know, kind of dictate who we are as tribal people, that policy is looked at indigenous people throughout the colonized, you know, world, and kind of how we do it will kind of set the policy ideas of those indigenous communities throughout the world. And it's each tribe is has their own identity, again, their own historical timelines and historical traumas. And so each tribe is different at getting off the ground in terms of these efforts. And so just with our understanding and education and food sovereignty and indigenous tribal food sovereignty, that we're trying to help assist with other tribes being able to get off the ground and be able to understand what this could look like in their community.
That must be really wonderful work to be a leader like that. Well, I think we're kind of coming to the end here of the questions. I wonder if we could just finish up with anything, Patrick, that you would like listeners tonight to take action in support of this work, or in any kind of way that you would recommend.
Yeah, there was a couple questions. If I could just really answer them real quick.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm sorry.
There's a bison culling program where they do cull a portion of their herd, and this is something that they distribute to tribal programs and tribal individuals who can have the access to the funds to process this meat. And to answer the second question, they offer this culling program so that they can identify any diseases in their herds. The CSKT has a long history of conservation of bison. There was a successful bison ranching operation in I want to say Dixon during the 1930s or around that era, and they had a very large herd off processing leather for manufacturing needs for equipment, like leather belts for their machines and things like that. And so there's a long history of being able to conserve the bison and how to monitor and keep them healthy. To get to Joni's question, our organization really benefits off the opportunities to continue our work and the support, again, that we receive from organizations and community members, and whether it be financial support. We can we have either we can receive donations and provide tax deductible receipts for those donations, or else if you are in the community and then you'd like to help with our efforts or our activities, we appreciate that. If you can help us find resources, there's so many ways that we are just only a grassroots organization, but we're really trying to stay that way so that we can stay to the needs and understand what's needed right now and be able to act on that. And any support that is out there or we receive is greatly appreciated and goes to the people in the community.
That's great. Thank you again, Patrick. This was really, really enlivening in the best sense of the word. I'm really excited about this work, and I'm sure everybody who listened tonight is. So we're going to wrap up this part, and I'm going to turn it back to Tom, and he'll be closing out the evening. If you could be sure to fill out the evaluation, that's really helpful to us. Thanks, everybody, for being here, and back to Tom.
Thank you, Joni. Right now, I want to thank Patrick for his presentation. It was very Very, very interesting. And I was really looking forward to the presentation. And also to let people know that if they wanted to contact Patrick, there's a, Maggie's going to post an email of his, how to contact him at the bottom in the chats. And also too, we're going to be having more of these events here in the future. So keep posted for some of them that, you know, we're going to be doing. And also that people, if you're interested in becoming a Northern Plains board or Northern Plains, a part of Northern Plains, there's a website on Northern Plains that you can go to join Northern Plains. And I just wanted to thank everybody for their participation and attending this event. Thank
We'll
you.
also put the website in the chat real quick too, if that's all right.
Okay, all right. And that is all we have. And we can end here.